Welcome to the Building Blocks of Safety podcast, where we provide emergency response training that's rooted in biblical principles. I'm your host, Benjamin Risk, and thank you for tuning into this very special episode where I provide a brief 30,000-foot overview of how to best protect you and your family in an active emergency. So before I get started, I want you to close your eyes for me. I'm going to paint a picture for you. So let's say you're out shopping with your family or you're at church with your family. Seems like everything's business as usual. You're getting the same groceries that you get all the time. You're worshiping God just like you always do in the church. When all of a sudden the atmosphere begins to change. Maybe somebody walks through the door that may not be an immediate threat, but something about them makes you uncomfortable. Let's say it's in the middle of the summertime. They're wearing a trench coat when it's 100 degrees outside. They're holding a duffel bag. Let's say they walk right into the center of a room and immediately begin raising their voice, and they reach into that duffel bag and pull out what appears to be a weapon. Let me ask you a question. What is the first thing to do in the event of an active emergency? Well, the answer is found in this episode, and this episode was designed with you in mind. So let's jump into it. The very fundamental foundation of safety is formed on situational awareness. Back in episode 1 of my podcast, I referred to something called OODA loop. We're going to do a brief review of what OODA loop is. So OODA loop stands for observe, orient, decide, act. Okay, we're going to break each of these acronyms down and really discuss how this applies to you. So the first O in OODA loop stands for observe. Observe is collecting information about somebody, such as their appearance or behavior. Let's go back to that picture I just painted about that person that walked in. What's some of the key clues that I gave you that made this person suspicious? They were wearing a trench coat in the middle of summer. They were holding a duffel bag. Their demeanor when they walked in, they began to raise their voice. These are some of the signs that you can collect as far as appearance and behavior. You're collecting information about this person. So the next O we're going to discuss in OODA loop is orient. What this means is analyzing the information you just collected and asking yourself, is this truly credible judgment? Is this person a threat? Is this person a wolf in sheep's clothing? Or maybe I'm getting the wrong impression about this person altogether. The next thing is deciding. That's the D in OODA loop. We determine that we are going to make a decision. It's kind of like a computer. With a computer, if you have too many files running at the same time, what happens to that computer? It locks up. Well, the human mind works the same way. If you have too many emotions operating at the same time or too many thoughts, what does your mind do? It locks up. That's what the majority of people do in an emergency situation. They lock up because there are too many factors happening all at the same time. My goal in this episode is to break each of these down so you have a clear-cut plan of how to move forward from these situations. So again, D stands for decide. You are going to determine that you are going to make some type of decision. The A in OODA loop stands for act. So we're not only going to make a decision, but we're going to follow through with that decision with due diligence. So that means we're not just going to think about making a decision. We're going to follow through with our actions in making that decision. We're going to move forward. The next thing I want to discuss is detach versus disengagement. So the definition of detach is to step back emotionally from a situation, observe it from a 30,000 foot point of view, and assess the situation, looking for the best possible outcome. So I'm going to go back to the picture I just painted. We just saw this guy came in, reached into the duffel bag, making a scene. Okay, what's the best way to handle this situation? Is it running away, screaming, hollering? Is it freezing? Is it doing nothing? No, what we're going to do, we're going to step back emotionally from the situation, realizing that this is an act of emergency. We're going to observe what this emergency is, and we're going to assess the situation, looking for the best possible outcome. As opposed to disengage, the definition of disengagement is to completely remove yourself from a situation. So that means that you're not part of the problem, which is good, but you're also not part of the answer. You're of no help to anybody if you just completely remove yourself from a situation. So let me ask you this question. What do you think is most effective in an act of emergency, detachment or disengagement? Actually, both are effective in their own unique way. Let me give you an example. If I had a hot stove in front of me, if I put my hand on that hot stove, do I have to think and say, that's a painful feeling on my hand. So the pain receptors from my hand, I'm waiting for them to travel up my arm to my brain to say this is hot? No, absolutely not. What are we going to do? We're going to touch it and ow, this is hot. We're going to completely remove ourselves from that situation because it harms us. It's the same with an active emergency. If there's no reason for you to be a part of that emergency, meaning if a building is on fire and you know everybody is removed from that building, then why in the world would you put yourself back into that building? No, of course not. We're going to completely remove ourselves from that situation. So again, detachment, disengagement are both effective in their own context. We're going to keep moving forward. I'm going to give you a brief overview of de-escalation tactics. So de-escalation tactics, there are 4 key elements to verbally de-escalating a situation. The first one is to maintain a reactionary gap. Now with the reactionary gap, usual safety protocol calls for about 7 to 9 feet when it comes to maintaining that reactionary gap. That's not always possible. So what you have to do, you have to assess the situation and again, observe how do I make the best possible outcome with this situation. So let's go back to the picture I painted. Let's say that somebody is making a scene, somebody reaches into the duffel bag, somebody begins yelling in your face, you got a disgruntled employee at work. We're just painting all these pictures to show that somebody is upset. How do you maintain that reactionary gap? You get your hands up. Okay, what does this look like? This is a naturally defensive position. So you're maintaining your hands in this position because what is this doing? This is managing the distance away from this person. This person can't get too close from me, but also what am I doing at the same time? I'm looking for his hands. In the previous episode, I talked about the 5 elements of suspicion. Your hands, waist, face, body, demeanor. With my hands up, keeping this person away, I'm looking for all those elements. I'm looking for their hands. What's in their hands? Is there a weapon that can possibly harm me? I'm looking at their waist. Is there any weapons in their waistband that I can see? I'm looking at their face. What is their face showing? Is their face showing that they're angry, frustrated, or maybe calm and complacent? I'm looking at their body language. What is their body language showing? Is this body language showing that they're working in ill intent? And I'm also looking at their demeanor. What is their body mixed with their facial expressions showing to me? So that's the things that we're looking for. So we're maintaining a reactionary gap. Second thing I'm looking for is I'm listening to understand this person. Okay? So I'm a believer in Christ. So the way I operate my life, I look through the lens of Jesus, how he sees people. A lot of these people that we interact with, especially those without Jesus, they're broken and they're looking for hope. That means instead of yelling at them or instead of preaching to them, we're listening to understand this person. What is really their problem here? You're looking for that problem. And that's the third element in verbal de-escalation is we're finding the problem. So we're not just listening to this person, waiting for us to speak our mind or saying, calm down, calm down. We're not doing that. We're listening to this person because we're trying to find what this person's issue is. And now the very last thing we talk about, the fourth thing, we're unlocking the solution for this problem. The majority of people out there, they just want to know that they're being heard. So again, we maintain a reactionary gap. We listen to understand the person. We find the problem, and then we unlock the solution to that problem if possible. Okay? So we're moving forward. The next thing we're going to talk about, okay, God forbid, an act of emergency breaks out right in front of us. Somebody pulls out a weapon. They start hurting other people. Okay, what is your job in this situation? Because we already know first responders are coming to the scene. Paramedics are coming to clean up. But you can do something that can potentially save lives. And I'm going to talk about this here. So the very first thing to do in a medical management scene is control your breathing. So when I first started in law enforcement, I was a rookie officer and I was handling a situation. Well, I was running to the scene and I got over the radio and I started giving orders over the radio. Hey, this is 215. I need reinforcements coming my way. I need a medical unit coming my way. Send all that back up. Nailed it. Thought I did great over the radio. Well, then a few moments later, a friend of mine came up to me and said, Officer Risk, what was that over the radio? I was like, what do you mean? I thought I did great. He said, you sounded like a turkey gobbling over the radio. You were because I didn't control my breathing. Okay, so I'm going to give you a brief exercise, a very quick exercise you can do to control your breathing and to lower your heart rate. Because communication is everything, especially when it comes to an active emergency situation. So there's something with first responders and military. We call it tactical breathing. What tactical breathing is you breathe in through your nose for 4 seconds and out through your mouth for 4 seconds. Now, sometimes the situation dictates that we may have to modify this. So maybe it's in through your nose for 1 second, out through your mouth for 1 second. But the key is breathing before you communicate, because what that's doing is it's bringing oxygen into your mind and you're able to think much more clearly than if you were to just speak without breathing. So again, we're going to talk about controlling your breathing. The second thing we're going to do, we're going to stop the bleed. So we talk about tourniquet training. We talk about how to properly pack a wound. And if you were to take my training courses, I go over this in depth, but I'll go over just real quickly. We're going to talk about stopping that bleeding, okay? Because again, we're not going to wait for paramedics to do something. We're going to be the answer. So I want you to repeat after me. When in doubt, apply direct pressure. Again, when in doubt, apply direct pressure, okay? So if you're not medically trained, that's a pretty good indication of what to do. Now, I'm not claiming to be a medical expert, so do not take this training as gospel of what to do in every medical situation. But this just gives you some tips of what to do in a medical situation. So sometimes if you see somebody bleeding, the best thing you can do is apply direct pressure to that situation. Okay, so let's say it's not just about bleeding in an active situation, in an active emergency. What if somebody falls into cardiac arrest? What if they fall down? What if their heart stops? Okay, what do? We check for pulse. We see if they have a pulse. Next thing we do, we begin doing chest compressions. So I encourage everyone listening to take a CPR course. I'm a CPR instructor through the American Heart Association, and that worked wonders with how I handle medical emergencies. So we check for pulse, we do compressions, and also we call 911 in these situations. The next thing If you have access to a defibrillator, use that defibrillator. Okay, with a lot of modern defibrillators, they tell you exactly how to use them. They give you step-by-step instructions on how to use them and how you can potentially save somebody's life by doing that. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is evac response or evacuation response. So there's a proper way to evacuate a building and an improper way to evacuate a building. I'm going to discuss the key principles, and I broke evac into acronyms. So we're going to go over these acronyms. So the first thing we're going to discuss is evaluating this situation. So let's paint that picture again. Let's go back to the picture we painted. So that guy's making a scene. He reaches into his duffel bag. You're evaluating this situation and looking, okay, what is the best possible outcome here? Okay, what does it look like for you? Does that look like confronting this attacker? Does that look like running away from the attacker? Does that look like calling 911 at that moment? But one thing you're not going to do, you're not going to freeze. You are going to do something. So again, we're evaluating the situation, looking for the best possible outcome. Next thing we're going to do, if possible, we're going to vacate that area. Okay, so us as leaders, we're taking as many people as we can with us, okay? So we're operating to become the answer. So we're trying to get as many people out of there as possible. So let's go back to a shopping center. Let's say we're shopping in Walmart and wherever. So we're shopping. Let's say an act of emergency begins to evolve in the front of the store. Well, let's say we can't access an exit immediately. What do you think is the best possible thing to do in that place? We move to another part of the store, okay? We get as far away from the active emergency as possible. And again, we take as many people as we can with us because we're here to become the answer. Next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna access an exit. So whenever I walk into a building, I look for all of my available exits, okay? So that's a good practice you can do. You can practice that today. You walk into wherever you're shopping, you walk into your church, you look for any exterior exits that you can access at any time. I'm not doing that to teach you to become paranoid. I'm doing that for you to be prepared so you can live without fear. So again, accessing an exit. Okay, how many doors are leading to the outside? Not only that, how many windows are in the place? Because you can very well use a window as an exit. So be mindful of that. Identify your exits when you walk into a building. The last resort we're going to do is we're going to confront the obstacle. Okay, so let's say you're trapped between you and an attacker, or let's say it's a natural disaster and there's nowhere else to turn. As a last resort, we're going to confront this obstacle. Okay, so let's say you're in a room, you're holding up, and this attacker is trying to get into the room. Okay, well, we will overcome this fight. Okay, that means you defend yourself by any means necessary. And I'm going to let you use your imagination on that, but we are going home at the end of the day, okay? And we will win this fight. So we confront the attacker as a last resort, or confront the obstacle as a last resort. So let me give you a very shocking fact. So 3 minutes is the average response time for law enforcement here in the U.S. Let me ask you a question. How many bullets can come out of a gun in the span of 3 minutes? Become the answer to this problem. Okay? In the Bible, it says in the book of Esther that we are called for such a time as this. I believe that I am called to bring hope into a hopeless world, and that's sharing Jesus and the love of Jesus to everyone around me. That's where the true answer lies. Out of everything that I discussed, these are good, practical tips to keep you safe, but they are nothing without being rooted in the love of Jesus. And I encourage you, if you never asked Jesus to be Lord and Savior of your life, it is a free gift. And He is calling for you today, because that's where the change occurs. If you would like to learn more information, please visit my website at www.ccd-security.com or click on the link below. Thank you for tuning into this very special episode, and have a wonderful day.